management staff, clients, or partners.
It's Monday, the 8th day of March, 2021. Welcome to the Daily Hour, brought to you by Medical House, One Communications, and Lindos. I'm Jamel Hartman, along with Carla Zul. Thanks for making us part of your daily routine. If you're watching online, share the link. If you're on Facebook, start a watch party. If you're on Twitter, retweet it. If you're watching on Channel 82, call someone up and let them know we're on. Just get the conversation out there to your network, and don't forget to like and engage with us. A good one to begin the week as the Minister of Education stops by to discuss education. I held that note too long. The Daily Play is who said it. So Carla's guessing a famous quote. Something tells me she's going to need a bit of help, but I'll just give her a quick hint. It's
a woman.
Day. So there you go. But we have a lot to get through today before we even get to the minister. And we're going to start with the royal mess. Well, the royal family mess. We're going to start with that because, like my opinions with Coming to America too, I think that, look, this show is all about changing the narrative and getting people to not change your mind necessarily, but think beyond your comfort. And I was pretty surprised with the reactions of people last evening. And now, let me just be honest. I stumbled into that interview with Oprah by mistake. And when I say by mistake, it's, well, I live in a house with women, and so I heard it on and I was eating dinner and it ended up taking my attention. But I mean, what are your thoughts, folks? What are your thoughts on the conversation with Meghan Markle? Does Harry have her last name? Windsor? Harry Windsor? Because it's not Prince Harry anymore, right?
No, it's Van. I can't pronounce it. All those names. Van Betten, something. But anyway.
Harry Windsor, Van Betten, whatever his name is, because I guess it's not Prince anymore. But we're going to talk about Meghan Markle. And, well, why don't he just take her last name? Harry Markle or something like that. Anyway, yeah, well, based on the British press, and we're going to go through some of the things being said in the British press this morning, which we could have known is predictable based on what they said. But what's happening in your world? What do you all think about what's been exposed in the royal family?
Well, I watched it. First of all, it hasn't shown officially. It hasn't shown in the UK yet. It shows tonight, right? I have a US box, so I watched it. Stayed up till some ungodly hour to watch it. I was trailing Twitter this morning. I wasn't surprised by what Meghan said. When Meghan, I'm here in the UK, when Meghan got married, I'll never forget on their wedding day, this gentleman said on UK CNN, he said something to the effect of, she's unique. And because I've been so engaged in America and Bermuda, the way that the marriage was covered was totally different from the UK perspective. They never ever used the word black, mixed race, anything, but she was unique. And in that moment on their wedding day, I was like, wow, she's in for a ride, right? But I find that the UK race relations are horrible and very politically correct. So to see people, and I understand it because they're not in the UK, that nothing about that surprised me. Even if talk about what the shade of the baby will be, that didn't surprise me. To me, that's standard. Disgustingly standard, but standard.
Here goes the unpopularity that I've become so comfortable with. But last summer, there were a bunch of Bermudian women, black women, that was celebrating the fact that Bermuda got a black governor. And they were running on and dancing and singing Black Girl Magic. A couple years ago, the biracial Meghan Markle was having a royal wedding with Prince Harry. And black women around the world were championing and screaming and singing Black Girl Magic. And I've always been told by my former lawyer, Eugene Johnston, that one of the things within our community that we do is we continuously celebrate the wrong things in people. And the excuses now, as when I put on my personal social media that, where's the Black Girl Magic that was celebrating a biracial woman marrying into this family? I repeat now that I said then, this is nothing to celebrate. Like what are we teaching ourselves? And here's the other thing, and it's something you expect from the British press through all of this. We've got to do better as people. We cannot become everything that we've been speaking against. We can't become everything that we fight against, and we can't be everything that we say we don't want to be. What do I mean by that? Whether we like it or not, there's two sides to a story. I'm disgusted at the fact that we continuously take information, and because we want to believe people or because we've been through stuff ourselves, we act like it's the gospel.
So what do you mean by that?
Oh, I'm going deeper. Don't worry. Every one of us has been in situations, and we've had two sides to that story. My version, your version. This is not to say what she's saying is not true. What it's saying is, why are we becoming the people that we don't want to be, that we've championed against, that we've complained about, and not even being open to hearing this? No, am I going to go as bad as, let me read some of this for you. Piers Morgan. Is it too late for Oscar nominations? Hashtag Meghan. So basically he's saying she's acting, right? He goes on to say, quote, on his Twitter, Piers Morgan, this interview is an absolutely disgraceful betrayal of the Queen and the royal family. I expect all this vile, destructive, self-serving nonsense from Meghan Markle. But for Harry to let her take down his family and the monarchy like this is shameful. Well, let me just jump in there, Mr. Piers Morgan.
She was nice.
What's shameful is the fact that if true, which I just don't, again, you don't know what people have to, earn from things, right? But if true, which it sounds believable, the whole thing about mental health, bro, this is why I believe it, because you've seen this over and over in workspaces. You've seen this. This is International Women's Day today. I guarantee you, a lot of women could put their hands up and say they've seen and experienced this.
Mal, do you know that when they had that baby and they refused to go on these steps, do you remember, I don't know if you're aware of what the gentleman that was a columnist and a BBC radio broadcaster did? Do you know about that?
No.
He did a column and he put a picture, it was like a caricature or old picture of a man holding a monkey, a gorilla, an orangutan, whatever it's called.
I believe I do remember the story.
And said he had no idea that she had a boy. That made my stomach turn that day. And that's when I knew for sure, like, wow, this lady is in for the battle of her life. And then he said, oh, I didn't realize it. Like, what?
Well,
the fact that he was brave enough to do that and they published it?
But again, this, one of the things that stood out to me from her last night was that the tabloids come to the palace hosted parties, right? And they basically control the tabloids to not put out anything negative. And some of the story, again, I'm not here to question anything that she's saying. What I'm doing is challenging all of us to think, because tomorrow I could go out with a story about Carla, with sit down and have a sincere conversation with somebody, and it be believable because of it's been norm for so long and people believe it. What I'm saying is, let's stop it. Stop it. Obviously, Buckingham Palace is likely going to come out and deny it, but we want to hear the other side, don't we? We can't be those people. We can't be those people. Let's not be those people.
Can you expect the other side to say anything different? Because there's a gentleman that was on Twitter as well, and he was like, well, he threw his dad under the bus, but you haven't heard his dad's side. And what else can they say besides, no, that's not true and it's misinterpreted? What else can they say?
But Carla, even if they say that, if they say it's not true and it's not true, I mean, look, here's the lessons. Here's the lessons. I can emotionally, the difference between myself and a lot of other people, I can emotionally detach from situations to try to make unbiased opinions. Not many people can do that. People ask, how can I get up here and criticize the government of Bermuda? Because I can detach from my emotions being allowed to, oh, this politician's a friend or this or that. No. Of course I can detach and say, well, he sounds more believable if that isn't in fact the case. But we legit let our emotions dictate what we believe as truth.
But that's in everything, Jamal. I agree with you to
Oh,
a certain extent, but it's in everything.
But that's my point. And that's the point of this show. To change narratives, to make people think. It shouldn't be with everything. That's part of the problem. We've got to be better. Every day I wake up, I'm trying to be better. Because the people in my life and around me deserve better. They deserve better. Elizabeth makes a great point. I found it hard to believe that she had no real knowledge of what type of family she was married. Yeah, I found that odd.
I did too, actually.
But then
I was like, lady, really? You never Googled?
Someone wrote on my personal Facebook saying something about Americans don't really know much beyond America and stuff like that. Some nonsense like that. Tamara Richardson said, I should add, I haven't watched the interview. I'd rather learn from the Golden Stool and the Ashanti. I guess she had another comment. Let me see. Here we go. I'm still not sure what is so shocking about a royal family that supported the largest empire and subsequent looting of Africa, India, and much of Asia being racist. And she's not even mentioned some of the worst parts. So yeah, it's an eye-opener, but it should not be surprising. Let's switch gears real quickly. Coming to America 2 was the most horrendous example of a Tyler Perry movie that I've ever seen. And let me say, as I stated privately, that I do believe that and can understand why people would find Coming to America funny. I get people who might like it, but that's the quality of movie that I think black people are saying, which is why black people never get to the other steps that they want to get. Not necessarily me. I'm cool being in our lane and sticking there. But that was a travesty. It was more like a spoof. But again, people have different ways of being entertained. So be it.
I enjoyed it. I don't remember the first one, right? I just remember Follow the Drip. I think that's, you let know I don't watch movies, but I specifically went to watch this one, especially when I saw people saying how bad it was. And to me, it was just brain fodder. It was just like something to have a good giggle about. It was stupid in some parts. It was clearly, unbelievable in others, but it was cute. It was funny. It was just like, all right. It's nothing that I would take to heart or I aspire to be, but it was funny.
I think it's one of those movies that would have been great 30 years ago. I just don't think we're in that space. You know how they someone once told me, this was back in the late 90s, right? If DMX would have came out barking as a rapper 5 years ago, people would have laughed at him. Now, 20 years later, if DMX is out here barking like a rapper, again, we're laughing at him. It's all about timing. And I think the movie was poorly timed. 30 years ago, it may have been number one, perfect. But we've seen too many of these kind of movies, stereotypes, I literally did not laugh at one bit because I just couldn't understand. When I say spoof, it was more of a spoof than a sequel. I'm talking about you have Scream and then you have Scary Movie. That's what it reminded me of. It was like, Okay,
I can agree with that. I can agree with that, but it wasn't as bad as you're making it.
no,
It was
Carla. When
worse.
you have a mindset like mine, it was freaking horrible. Like when
But
you
you're grumpy.
when you have an expectation of movies, that was horrible. Like that's not the like comment straight out of Compton was a good movie to me.
Yeah, it was.
That right there was the type of trash that literally, I mean, the art was great. Um, it
The
was great
costumes.
to see so many great entertainers in there. Mr. Taxman Wesley Snipes himself, right? It was great, but that's I want black movies to do well because black actors and actresses like that don't typically get those opportunities, and then there are people that will look at this and say, and this is why.
But Jamal, everything's not for everybody. For me, that's always stressed out and on the go. It was a nice way to chill for an hour and a half, 2 hours. It didn't add anything to my life. It didn't take away. It was like, okay, that was cute. It's all right.
No, there are things for everybody. I'm not disputing that. That's why I said there are people that would enjoy it. I always say there's types of people that enjoy certain things, and if that's your thing, I can guarantee you I understand why we are here and here. Trust me. There was a party at Botanical Gardens that apparently everybody's mad at. You gonna speak about that in your news?
I am.
Okay. Well, look, it's International Women's Day, so if you know a woman, and look, they don't have to be anything to anybody else, but if there's someone to you, just let them know they're appreciated, show them some appreciation, recognize them for what they bring to the table. Carla, we're going to go to news to you, and then we have the Minister of Education coming up, Minister, the Honorable Diallo Rabain, so don't go anywhere. Over to you, Carla.
For 11 p.m. on Friday, March 5th, police attended the Horticultural Hall, Botanical Gardens in Paget after receiving several anonymous calls reporting that a large party was taking place there with more than 20 people, the maximum number allowed under the current COVID-19 regulations in attendance. Police officers arrived at the location and reported there were in excess of 100 people at the event. No one was wearing masks and there was no social distancing. Based on the number of persons at the location and the reported breaches, several police units were dispatched to assist. The organizer of the event could not be located among the crowd, and no one was willing to assist police with their inquiries. However, the details of several vehicles which began leaving the scene as police arrived were recorded. It may come as a rather sad surprise that International Women's Day was first celebrated on February 28, 1909 in New York. Broadening your horizons on International Women's Day to understand the differences between countries and how women are treated in the world can offer a new appreciation for us. Have you ever stopped to consider what it means to be a woman? Aside from a biological definition, there is a lot that goes into defining, feeling, experiencing, and celebrating womanhood on International Women's Day. In a day and age where gender issues and gender roles are being questioned, it's only fair to broaden your perception of what a woman can be and do. Turning to weather, the temperature in Bermuda is expected to reach a high of 61 today. Tampa, Florida will see a high of 72, and Leeds, UK, a high of 47. That's your Daily Hour news break.
All right, thanks for that, Carla. It is International Women's Day, so we're going to take a quick break, and then we will be back with the Minister of Education, Diallo Rabain, after these messages.
Today, in many places around the world, International Women's Day is being recognized. It's only right that we take the opportunity to recognize not only the faces of this show, but also those in the background hiding from the camera. Shanta Simmons is a co-founder of Bermuda Communications Group and key to ensuring that the company continues to exceed in delivering the community what it needs. Keitha Keynes is a partner and oversees the finances of the company and all of its brands. Her role, also key, ensures that we are financially stable and able to deliver the quality our audiences desire. Carla Zool had been in talks with us since we founded the company. About a year ago, she was welcomed in as a co-host of the Daily Hour. Carla is the founder of the Women's Empowerment Summit She-Hub TV, and brings the more relaxed vibes on the Daily Hour. Jackie Lambert, well, she brings the youth, the laughs, and the enjoyment. As well as a bubbly personality, Jackie is also the best tennis player you'll ever meet. To all of the women in the BCG family, our audiences, partners, friends, and family, salute. This day is for you.
Good day, Medical House Doris speaking. Can I help you?
Medical House is Bermuda's leading one-stop shop for healthcare.
Medical House is a great resource for Lefroy. The service is excellent.
Medical House is best known for its uniforms and footwear. It has hundreds of styles of scrubs and nurses' uniforms for health professionals. Bermuda's top doctors, dentists, care homes, and the hospital choose Medical House for a wide range of products. These same professional quality products are available to you for home health care.
The biggest reason to come see us is that we specialize in these areas and the education and knowledge that we provide.
Medical House is on Millreach Lane in Pembroke, where there's private parking right outside the door. Call or visit Medical House today.
Welch's, producers of the world's best-known grape juice, have been based in Concord, Massachusetts since 1869. Distributed in Bermuda by John Barrett & Son, Welch's has become a household name. We're featuring Welch's 100% Concord grape and Niagara grape juices, distinctly delicious and heart-healthy, and ushering in bold new flavors. Welch's Super Berry Juice, combining the Concord grape with Aronia berries for tartness and mangosteen for sweetness, and Welch's White Grape Peach and flavored blend of white grape, pear, apple, and peach juices. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
All right, welcome back to the big show. She's Carla Zool. I'm Jamel Hartman. It's the Daily Hour, brought to you by Medical House, One Communications, Linda's, and our friends over at Channel 82, where you can also watch this and many other locally produced shows if you have One Communications cable. We have the Minister of Education joining us today, but another big shout out to women. This is your day, but I think James Birch kind of sums it up. I believe he put a comment. Yeah. I pledge for International Women's Day. I will celebrate and respect women every day. So that's something that we all can follow. But without further ado, we do have the Minister of Education, the Honorable Diallo Rabain. Welcome him to the show. Good morning, sir. Welcome.
Good morning, Jamel. Good morning, Carla. And I want to join you in wishing all of our women around the world, but more especially in Bermuda, happy International Women's Day.
Absolutely, Minister.
Good morning.
So firstly, thank you for doing this with us, stopping by and having a conversation with the people. I actually was on Twitter, right? So, I went on Twitter this morning, and what I came across was the headline from the Royal Gazette. And I wasn't expecting it. I don't want you to think we're in cahoots with the Gazette or anything. Chances are that will be a false claim. The top story says top scoring schools face closure. So I guess since it's there, it looks like St. George's Prep and St. David's Primary top the tables. But since that's there, let's just start there and talk about this headline a bit, because there has been a lot of talk about these schools, certain schools phased out, and a new parish-like system being implemented. Speak to us a bit about this article about these top schools. What will happen with these schools going forward?
Well, Jamel, what we have done, and the research, we've been doing this for almost 2 years now, and looking at what the research shows us. And what we've determined, based on the research that we've done and the hard data, is that Bermuda, we all know Bermuda's population is falling. Our birth rate has been in decline since the 70s. And the number of students we have within our system can be accommodated in less schools. And so when we looked at that and we looked at that became part of a bigger picture that we looked at. And we started with, what should a student look like when they finish the education system? See, what has happened is what I would call tinkering around the edges of education reform. Try something here, try something there. Not a lot of follow through, not a lot of data collected to ensure that we see success. And so we decided let's we're going to do this differently this time. We're going to start with what a student should look like when they pass out of our school system. And what we want is a student that is not only well-rounded academically, but able to assume a role within employment, whether that's what they choose, or on to tertiary education or university or college after that. And so then once you know what type of student you want, you can start to reverse engineer. How do you get to that point? What needs to be in place in order to get to that point? So then when we got down to the primary schools, we recognized that we've always recognized that early education, the earlier start you get to education, the more support you have around those particular years leads to a much firmer standing as you matriculate through the system. And so when we looked at the amount of students we had and the amount of schools, and one of the biggest issues that we do have are resources within our school. And so what that does come down to is an inequality throughout the school system. And so when we looked at how many students we have, the projection of how many students we had, it became, okay, let's see how we can take the same pot that we have and how we can spend that more effectively to ensure that all of our students get what it is that they need to get. And so some people, I do believe after all of the consultations, they're looking at this as simply us trying to save money and to build new schools. That is absolutely far from where we were. That is part of it, but that's not the focus of it.
Well, and I just want to, if you don't mind, Carla, let me just jump in with this, because I'm glad you mentioned money, because I didn't want to be seen as the bad guy for going there. But every time this government seems to do something, whether it's sugar tax, it's always seems like it's about the economics more than the health. Now we're talking about the cannabis, and it seemed like, as I listened to the debate personally, economics rather than health and medicinal and so on. And now with the schools, I'm gonna be honest, I did not think like first, oh, well, it's gonna save money and they can sell off these buildings. But when there's this sort of pattern, can't you understand why people will think, oh, this is not about the students, this is about making money?
Well, and in all fairness, I could probably agree with you on that point, but that is why we are looking at this from the massive. It's a massive task to change the way people think around education and understand that education has to work. Education cannot fail. If education fails, Bermuda fails. And we've seen that and we recognize that. So we have to approach this from a different perspective and stop. And so we get in our meetings, and we've had 15, 16 of them, I want to say. And there's always someone that says, well, how much is it going to cost? And if know how much it's going to cost, why are you even bothering to talk about it? Or how many teachers, if you're got less schools, how many teachers are you plan to fire? And those are the things that they worry about and want to focus on. What we're trying to get people to understand is, when dealing with education, the first thing that should come to mind is what is best for the student, not what is best for the building, not what's best for the persons that work within the system, not what's best for the minister, not what's best for the government. What is best for the student? And we have to keep that in our focus when we're talking about these things. And that's where we start. What is best for our students?
And as you know, Minister, on the human side of it, people are very emotional. Jamal talked about that earlier. I saw a conversation when this was first announced, and people wanted to start movements to save this school because they went there and it's no longer going to exist. How is the ministry dealing with the emotional side of it, where people feel my school shouldn't leave because it's better than this school, etc.?
And that is interesting, because when you do have these conversations, one thing that you want to do is try to get people to think from a different perspective. There are some out there that firmly believe that if you don't agree with them, you're not listening to them. There are some out there that think, hey, who leave our sessions and think, something, I never thought of that. That is a possibility. So when I'm in these sessions and we're talking about an understanding of the emotional connection to the physical building, I've been in some of these sessions where it's been, well, what if we retain the name of the school, but we switch it to another school, and I don't agree. I just want my building. And when you start thinking it's At what point does it get where a building's not fit for purpose, but you retain it anyway? And you try your best to patch it up and do whatever it is you need to do, knowing that it's probably never going to be in a position to be fit for the purpose that you want it to be fit for. And you know, it's coming to a conclusion in my mind that there are some minds that no matter what ideas you present, no matter how good they are, some people will never accept them, some people will, and we have to figure out a way to balance as we move through that. But I believe, Carla, you're a Berkeley graduate.
No, I went to
Okay.
Work Academy.
Okay, and Jamal, I don't think you at Berkeley.
No.
I didn't, but I actually use it as one of the examples. Berkeley is a school that's been in 3 or 4 locations. Has that diminished the historical the historical pride around the school? No. There are lots of schools that have moved to different locations, and that has not diminished the impact and the historical impact that they have on our society. And so I try to, you know, my reasoning is to try to say we have the historical legacies that we have to preserve, and we have to come up with a way of preserving that. And we have the buildings that some of them are literally falling down around us. And so when we're looking at it, and when we do have an opportunity to look at it from a fiscal perspective, it is easier to take the pie that we have to spend in less buildings, and therefore providing more resources to those buildings than it is to try and spread them out through multiple buildings. We have some of our primary schools now that have 60 students, but the cost of running a school that has 60 students and the cost of running a school that has 300 students, there's just very minimal change in that. But you can imagine if public education is what we call a comprehensive system. And the Education Act states that any child that shows up must be given an opportunity to learn within their confines. You know, we often find people saying, "Well, look how much you're spending per child compared to the private school." And then I will ask the question, "Well, which child are you talking about? Are you talking about a quote unquote normal child? Are you talking about a child that requires extensive physical therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy, a child that's dyslexic, a child that is a child that needs accessibility installed in the classroom specifically for that child, hard of hearing, legally blind, you know?" And these are the types of things. And I'm not using that as a crutch, but people also need to understand that when children come to the public school system, we have to figure out a way to get them to learn. And we don't enjoy the luxury of our private school counterparts who have the luxury of choosing and refusing what students come through the door. And we don't also have the luxury of asking our parents to pay extra because additional services are needed as our private school counterparts do. And so I find it it's an apples to oranges comparison when you try to do just a per child cost comparative because of the extra things that have to be in place for us. But we recognize that, we take that challenge on, and we want our schools to be, as we said, equitable across the board. We don't want a high performing school in one area and a low performing school in another area simply because of resources. And the best way to do that is to take, as I said, the pie we have and divide it into larger parts for less buildings than to continue dividing it up into smaller parts for more buildings.
All right. We're going to do things a bit different this morning because obviously the audience has a lot of questions. So we're going to try to get through the questions coming through publicly as well as private.
Sure.
Tamara Richardson asks, did I miss what is the end product we want for our children? We do want all our future graduates to leave with from this new plan. What do we want all of our graduates?
Okay, well, first of all, we want our children to leave with a high school diploma, an internationally recognized high school diploma, which we do have now. We do have an internationally recognized, the Bermuda Leaving School Certificate is internationally recognized because it can get you into college. But we also want our students to leave our schools with the experience of its apprenticeships, the experience of internship, the experience of being able to follow their pursuits and get a entry-level introduction into what it is that interests them in terms of what they want to do as they move forward. We want our children to be culturally relevant they have a cultural appreciation for what Bermuda is. We want our children to leave our school with a diploma in one hand and experiences on the other hand that can either lead to them having direct success going into employment or creating their own businesses. When we talk about the entrepreneurial part of the curriculum that we want to introduce, or we want them to be able to go off to university and confident that they'll be able to succeed. And so when our children leave, as I said, diploma in one hand, they may have certifications in the other hand, they may have their dual enrollment at the Bermuda College tucked under the other. In the other hand, they may have apprenticeships already lined up that they've been working in already before they leave our school. Internships, volunteer positions. We want our children to succeed when they leave, and knowing that they succeed, and we want the public to be confident that when they hire a student from the Bermuda public school system, they are getting a student that they know has the qualities to help their company succeed.
I have a question coming in. Will the school design eliminate or remove aided schools?
That is a question that has not been answered yet. And there's this thought process throughout Bermuda that the aided school is the better system. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it is not. What I am saying is that part of our education reform is what we're talking about now, the primary school proposal. But as we tell people all the time, that is only part of many other things that are going on. One of the more important things that are going on as well is the team that's looking at the creation of an education authority. The education authority will be responsible for the governance of all schools in Bermuda. And one thing that they are tasked with is looking at all models that are currently working in Bermuda and come up with a system that will work for us. And so they are looking at the aided school concepts. And I know for a fact that there are some really positive things that they are taking to that to put into the mix. And they're looking at how the rest of our schools work. We have, I was just reading a document where it talks about the aided school concept, but there's this belief that the St. George's Prep as an aided school is working ridiculously good, and how dare you even discuss the possibility of St. George's Prep not being the parish school in St. George's. And first of all, there are no decisions that have been made on what the final outcome of the parish school proposal will look like. And secondly, there's nothing in the documents and nothing that we said has said that we will be eliminating aided schools carte blanche, or we will not be looking at how they work and seeing how they can fit in, how that model fits into the overall governance. What we have said is Bermuda needs to be a system of schools, not schools within a system, which is what we have now. We need to ensure that what's happening in St. George's is happening in Somerset. It's happening in the middle of the island. We need to ensure that all of our students get the opportunity to succeed, regardless of the skills that they bring into our system.
All right. Another question coming in. What is the funding that will be required to establish signature schools?
And that is another question that comes up quite a bit. And as you talked about, everything seems to revolve around funding. As I said, we've taken a different approach for this. We've said this is what we want our students to look like. Now we need to design how that system gets to getting our students there. And the government is committed to the funding of what needs to be done to get us there. We have to come up with the actual plan. For far too long, we have shortchanged our children by saying, we're only going to spend X amount. Now let's see what we can fit under there. It has to be done differently. It has to be looked at of what is it that our children need in order for them to succeed. Then we say, this is what it's going to cost to get us there.
I want to go back to the authority. You mentioned going to an authority. Now, yes. I think we're at a point in Bermuda, and I'm sure you would probably agree as well, Minister, or maybe not because you're the Minister of Education now, but Bermudians just don't trust government and politics to fix education. And they have good reason, as we've seen what's happened with the amount of education ministers from various administrations over the years. You've probably been one of the longest so far in recent times. That said, why do you believe, or why does the government believe that an authority is the way to go at this time? And what will the authority do differently than what's being done right now?
The idea of having an authority is to improve the governance structure. And one thing that you'll hear people say, there's no accountability throughout education, which I take exception with. There are teacher evaluations, there are principal evaluations that do occur as we speak. But one thing that I do know is education operates slightly different from the rest of government, from the rest of how government operates. And having an authority in place for us represents an opportunity to have an entity that allows that controls the governance system of our education, and be able to make those decisions that need to be made a little bit quicker, a little bit with a little bit less red tape, I guess I guess you could say, outside of the traditional government structure. And that is the purpose of the authority, to bring a governance structure to education that gives more autonomy to the schools to operate, and gives more accountability from top to bottom. If you looked at our proposal, one of the goals, which is listed throughout all the proposals that we talk about, is to have an accredited system, an internationally accredited system across the board. And so we want our schools to be measured against international benchmarks of how they should perform. Right now, the only public schools that have international accreditation is Cedar Bridge Academy and the Barclay Institute. But as I said earlier, we want to have a system of schools that adhere to a standard that is internationally recognized, not a school inside of systems that some are performing, some are not, some have the resources they need to perform, some don't necessarily get the resources they absolutely require. Some are accredited, some are not accredited. That just makes for a patchwork of systems. And so introduction of the authority will help to lead the overall governance of our schools from top to bottom.
So, Minister, what would you say is the number one challenge facing the Bermuda public system currently, and what is your ministry doing to counteract it?
The number one system, as I said, is inequality. Bermuda being as small as it is, even though it is as small, we have, and our system being as comprehensive as it is, depending on the demographics, there is a different type of student that may attend a particular school. And so when you have a system where the only thing, and you've said it on the show, and actually you said it a little earlier, Jamal, when you said not academically inclined, a term I don't particularly like that much. But when you have a system that treats all students as one size fits all, and you have demographics within certain parishes that lead to students, and we're talking about social emotional issues, lack of wraparound services, and a lot of other factors come into that. But you have the one size fits all. You're never going to get the equality that you need across the system, because one particular school will always attract a type of student, and they will cater the way they deliver education, because our principals do have some autonomy, and sometimes they'll cater that way to that type of student. And they'll not require as much resources as, say, another school that has students that come from a particular area where the parental support is not as great as it is. And there are some other issues there. But because of our constraints, fiscal constraints of providing those resources based on the model we have now, we're just not able to provide them with the things that they need. And so what we're trying to do with the system is, first of all, introduce equality across the board. So no matter what school you go, you will have access to the resources you need to succeed as a student. That is the biggest thing that we see.
This is not personal, because I really try not to get personal with people as it relates.
You can get personal.
But people that may be listening to you may be saying, okay, like the Premier, the Honorable Minister is not a product of the public school system as far as where you graduated high school, right? Mm-hmm. And so when people make these personal statements, they are correct. But do you think that that plays a role in how you understand how the system could operate, or do you believe that your experience in a private institution gives you an understanding of what worked then and how it could work in the public education system?
Well, interesting you mentioned that. Well, Jamal, I graduated Soltis in 1980 something, right? I'm showing my age.
So you're like Carlos' age. I got you. No,
he's older.
I graduated from Soltis in 88, 89. And so my view of the school system back then, which was a 2-tier system, the +11 exam, which you were kind of hinting to earlier. I've always felt it was an unfair system. Call me an old soul, but I've always felt it was unfair that at 11 years old, you set an exam that kind of shaped the path of your life for the rest of your life. But that was the way it was done then. It was done that way in the UK, and that was just transferred to Bermuda. The movement to the middle school system was an attempt to level that off and to say, okay, every child deserves a chance to succeed. And so we'll kind of eliminate the best school and these lowest type schools over here and kind of throw everything in. One of the reasons it failed, in my opinion, is the implementation was not great. The resources were not there. The training for the teachers was not there. It was kind of you switched the lights off on Friday, you came in on Monday, and everything was different, and everybody was still kind of figuring out, flying the plane while you're building it. And so this is where, and it's really, really weird when we're having these types of conversations. People fully expect that. So they're like, okay, how come you don't have a plan on how you're going to get? How come you can't tell me what the transition is going to be from where we are now to where we want to go? And we have a difficult time explaining to people that, the transition plan needs to be done right. So we have as minimal disruption to our children. So there are decisions that have to be made before you can make further decisions. Although the one thing we started was at the end of what we want our student to be and reverse backwards. Now we're saying, okay, how do we now build the system to get to that point where we want to be? But getting back to your original question is, I think, as I said earlier, the education fails, Bermuda fails. That is public and private. As the Minister of Education, I have an appreciation for both because the Minister of Education is the overarching entity over both public and private school. A lot of people don't know that. I have a very good rapport with the private school principals, and we talk on a regular basis to check in on them and see how they're doing, especially during COVID, to see how they're coping. But the weirdest thing that I can ever say is they probably have a better understanding of the challenges in the public school system than the people who are in the public school system, because they see it and because they see what they're doing and how they're able to do what they do and what we're doing and how we're able to do what we do. And we actually have those types of conversations. But I don't think being a product of graduating from Soltis, obviously, I did attend Elliott Primary, and then I attended Soltis, and then I went to a Florida A&M University, a Black university, which helped me define some of the personality, and I did. And one of the things I would say it really awoken in me going to a Black university was how institutionalized Bermuda was with its racism, even at that young age. When you left and you went to school and you saw things that other fellow students would not tolerate, and you're like, hey, in Bermuda, that's like kind of accepted. And so that became a different type of awakening for me. And I've always been interested in education. So it's the greatest privilege of mine to be the Minister of Education, because I get to see how we can evolve. But my daughter is a product of public school education. She attended Elliott. She's now at Whitney Institute, and she's looking forward to her senior school at Berkeley or Cedar Bridge. She loves it. She's thriving in public school right now. And so I know it's possible for children to thrive.
All right, we have quite a few questions. Running out of time, Minister. I'm already going to ask you. We need to have you back because
I come back. I already told Shanta I come back as many times.
Let's try to get through some. Nikki Michelle says, pushing unprepared children through the system. What's the plan for that? And I'm glad she said that because I was always a child that was told I was being pushed through the system. But yeah, what are the plans to addressing that?
I don't know. Do you consider yourself being pushed through the system?
To be very fair and to have that conversation publicly, I'm actually very comfortable to do so. I think that if we were to look at my academic situation in Bermuda, I could sit here and say the system failed me, or I can say that it was a combination of myself and the system. But at the end of the day, what I'm learning, the more we speak to people with education backgrounds, whether it be public or private, I'm learning about the opportunities that do exist in spaces that were not where I was. So to be honest, I probably would say I was pushed through.
Okay, and thank you for that. Well, what I find is that is something that I've heard so often. I've repeatedly asked, okay, well, what do people mean when you say push through? And you'll get differing answers to that. In some cases, it is irresponsible to continue to hold the child back because there is only a certain level that the child will reach. As I said, we have a comprehensive system within the education. You have the regular track, then you have the functional skills, and you have the functional academics track, and then you have special education tracks. And in some cases, parents are, my child's not ready to move forward. But the data states that they are ready to move forward, but they won't ever reach, based on the particular circumstance, they won't ever reach where the parents want them to reach. And so that is one case where, that is one example where people say, well, they're just passing children along, even though they're not ready to move. But in fact, they are ready to move, but they're just not at the level that the parent feels they would like them to be. And also remember, everybody judges what's going on based on their own personal experiences within when they went to school. But generally speaking, social promotion does not happen. I've heard of cases where two students will be kind of pushed along because someone's tired of them being in the class or holding the class back, so they kind of work with them so they can get the minimal pass to get forward. And these are the types of things that I put on to lack of adequate resources or equity within the system, because we should be in a position to provide all of our children with the resources that they need. Unfortunately, we are not, based on the current construct that we have. We want to change that construct. We want to make sure that whatever these children need to succeed is succeed within their parameters of their ability to succeed. That needs to be addressed, and we need to do a better job at doing that.
One final question, because we are out of time.
Only one more?
Tamara Richardson says, can we get back to the actual customer, the child? We want our students to get a diploma. I'm simplifying. What does that mean in a world that's rapidly changing, where current curriculum is outdated, Eurocentric, and out of touch with technological advances?
And see, that goes back to what we talked about earlier, having our children graduate not only with a diploma, but with life experiences that'll get them going in the real world. And so when we talk about this concept of signature schools, the concept is to not only provide you with your diploma, but to provide you with life skills. And so just on Friday, I tabled the Education Amendment Act to pave the way for signature schools. And our first the signature curriculum focus we talked about was business, finance, tourism, and the trades. And those are the first of several to come. The idea with having these signature schools is that they're constantly evaluated based on the data, that feedback we get from the Bermudian public and from what's going on academically in the world, what's going on from from an employment position within the world. And so the schools we want is when we talk about things like horizon scanning, we want to be able, the schools need to be able to look and see what's coming down the pipeline, and then not 6 months from now, but 5-10 years from now. So so those things can be adapted and put into the system, so our children can be prepared for that when they get to that point. We don't want to talk about like you talk about blockchain stuff, right? It all of a sudden just popped up, and Bermuda was like struggling behind that because it was not something that had been looked at, and said, hey, this is coming down the pipeline. Let's make sure we have coding in our schools. Let's make sure we look at our IT curriculum and see what we can do to improve so our students have access to that and be ready for that type of technology when it comes. There will always be things that are needed, and I believe we've done a very bad job at preparing our students for the trades in Bermuda. It's a measure. We're failing. It's from the success of Bermuda. And a lot of our students, when I was in school, my mom was like, "You're not gonna be an electrician like your dad," and she wasn't saying it in a mean way, but it's like, hey, we see all the money's in other stuff, academics, and so we've been pushing our children towards that. But you know something? When your toilet's not flushing, you're always going to need a plumber. You're always going to need an electrician. You're always going to need persons in that. So we need to expose our children to that. Let them know that there are opportunities to make money, to make a good living, perhaps even open your own business, doing whatever it is that you want to do. And so we have to give them that exposure. And so to answer that question, it's not about just giving them a diploma to say you finished high school, but it's also to give them experiences in various trades and various vocations, so they can have a more informed decision of what it is they want to pursue after school life.
All right, Minister of Education, the Honorable Diallo Rabain. We definitely will be arranging a second part to bring you back. We do have a lot.
Third part, fourth part.
Well, fourth, fifth, yes. Definitely, the audience has a lot of questions, and we just definitely want to get through as many as possible. So we appreciate you getting this conversation going on the Daily Hour, and look forward to having you back.
And I look forward to coming back. I remember one time you guys were having a conversation, and I text Colin and said, "No, this is not it." And she was like, "You're gonna have to explain that to me." So I look forward to that opportunity. And like I said, anytime to talk about education, I'm sincere about this. This is, and I upset some people when I say, this is not about politics for me. This is making the right decision for our children. And if that results in persons not liking me as a politician, I'm willing to accept that. Because at the end of the day, I truly do believe that if education fails, Bermuda fails. And for far too long, too many people have used education as a political tool to leverage anything else. And that is why you've had ministers. When I first came in here, I sat down and I was appalled that I was the 19th minister since the 90s. And the ministers of education averaged like 1 year, 4 months. And I was like, this is crazy. We need stability there. But however, I have found out that the international average for education ministers is around 2 years. 2 years.
So you've passed the average.
I have passed the average. Headed into be 4 years this June. It's not a milestone that I celebrate at all.
All right, we've got to pay some bills, Minister. We have to stay on air so we can bring you back. But thanks again, and we'll be in touch.
All right. Thanks.
No problem. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back to close it out. Daily Play, inspiration, and more.
Hi, Bermuda. Now that we have covered the difference between internet and Wi-Fi and introduced you to our One Home Wi-Fi solution, we want to show you some of the amazing features it has to offer besides ensuring Wi-Fi coverage in and around your home. Our Eero devices are plug and play, making them super easy to install. They come with features to help you monitor the internet connections and speed tests from the palm of your hand, and health checks to let you know the status of your internet connection. Now, for the parents out there, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. With the Eero app, you can create profiles for each of your kids and pause their internet access no matter where you are. Kids not doing their homework? Or is it family dinner time? No problem. Just press pause. You can also say goodbye to that sticky note with a Wi-Fi password. Grant access to Wi-Fi for guests and visitors, or remove extra devices from your Wi-Fi connection. Check us out at One Today to sign up and gain full control of your internet experience.
Are you a startup business and need access to office space and resources to help your business get started or to grow? The Enterprise Bermuda Incubator is a free program that helps entrepreneurs like you get beyond the idea stage to get their businesses started. Successful applicants will spend 12 months in the program getting mentorship, office space, learning opportunities, one-on-one coaching, and more. To apply, log on to bedc.bm. This is a free program with limited availability, so don't delay. Apply today. We look forward to helping you build your business.
All right, welcome back to the big show. Carlos Zoom, myself, Jamal Hartman. Thanks again to One Communications, Lindo's Medical House, Daily Playtime, famous quote, who said it? Quote, here we go. I'm convinced that we Black women possess a special, indestructible strength that allows us to not only get down, but to get up, to get through, and to get over. End quote.
Vice President Kamala Harris.
It's an entertainer.
Oh. Gladys Knight.
Younger.
Janet Jackson. Nah, she ain't that
You
deep.
got it. Check.
Oh, shoot.
Janet Jackson is the person who said, quote, I'm convinced that we Black women possess a special indestructible strength that allows us to not only get down, but to get up, to get through, and to get over, end quote. Can anyone tell me why she made that quote?
Nipplegate.
There you go. Chuck, you on fire this morning. It was at an award show after the incident at the Super Bowl halftime show. Carla, any inspiration?
You are more powerful than you know. You are beautiful just as you are. Melissa Etheridge.
All right. As you are. Another powerful woman one. Any quick words in 10 seconds or less of today's show?
Can't wait for part 2.
And I will leave it right there and echo what you said. Thanks again to our partners, Medical House, One Communications, and Lindo's for ensuring that we're able to do this with you on a daily basis. As always, we appreciate you, we love you, and we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we will be back to do this again with you tomorrow. She's Carla Zool. I'm Jamal Hartman. My friends, make it a great day.